If parenthood came with a GPS, it would most likely just say recalculating. Join Yolandi Becker and her guest experts Wednesdays at 11 a.m. for Bump and Beyond, the show about pregnancy and babies. 101.9 megahertz of life.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are on Bump and Beyond, and I am your host, Yolandi Becker. And as always, very happy to join you today and excited for today's show. It's been a bit of a bumpy ride, and today I feel like I have three very pressing, because there's one additional one that added my pressing issues to discuss with you. The first one, the cold. I really hope it is passing very soon, this cold, because I am really not built for cold. I don't know who decided this was a good idea, but I am freezing and I want warm. Luckily, we're in August. Can you believe it? So soon spring will start and the warmth will come back. So let me know if you're just like me, not enjoying the cold. The other two topics that I want to discuss today are more serious topics. One specifically a lot more serious than the other, and the other one a little bit less serious, I guess. The first one, the more serious pressing issue to discuss, and I would love to have your input on this, is of course the Barbie movie. Have you guys seen it? Have you been to see it with a friend? Have you been to see it by yourself? I really want to go watch it. I've always been a giant Barbie fan, to be honest, always. And my daughter is the same. But very shockingly, I realized, and this is why this is such a pressing issue for me, is that I realized there's a PG-13 age restriction on a Barbie kids movie. How is that even possible? Luckily, my daughter is like close to 10. So I feel like, I mean, if we could watch Pirates of the Caribbean and if we can watch Marvel movies, I'm pretty sure Barbie will be fine. But have you watched it? So you couldn't watch it obviously with your 4-year-old. I assume it's not age appropriate. I don't know. I would love to have your input on this. So as always, join this chat. You can, of course, SMS us on 34519. SMSs are charged at R1.50, or you can send us a telegram on 010 140 3020. I would really love to have your input on this. Very pressing, like I said, pink Barbie movie. I mean, you can't not know that there's a Barbie movie, because I think there's been a pink explosion on this is marketing next level. They have for sure brainwashed more of us than should be allowed. But it's also fun. Why not have some brain dead? Is that the right word? Brain dead kind of entertainment, and enjoy it. I'm for sure, like I said, planning on watching it this coming weekend with my daughter. But like I said, before I do that, I would love to have your input. Is it okay for me to take her? I don't know. If you've seen it, let me know. I would love to know if it's okay for a 9-10-year-old to go watch this movie. If not, I don't know. She might actually physically kill me if I don't take her. Then on to the next pressing issue, and this is less serious than the Barbie movie. It is COVID. The reason why I'm bringing it up is that I was actually sick with both my kids last week with COVID. Can you believe it? I actually thought it was gone. I mean, I guess I didn't think it was gone, but I really could not believe it. That we had COVID. And to be honest, I'm not so shocked about the fact that we had maybe you are. My doctor was pretty shocked, because there's so many viruses going around that I chose to have that. Who could have believed that would happen? But very interestingly, for me, like while I was sick, I was wondering, how is it that I now have COVID, and why did no one tell me to have a vaccine for it? I had the flu vaccine. I've had the COVID vaccine back in the day when COVID was still, I don't know, a thing. I guess it's still a thing, obviously, because I had it. But when it was still popular to have COVID, I had it. And finally, then I obviously had my vaccine and we had it. And I do have to say, my symptoms were very mild. This time around, I was so sick. And then I was like thinking, I had the flu vaccine and no one actually reminded me. I mean, I guess I'm an adult. I could have reminded myself that I should go for the COVID vaccine. Have you been for it? Again, another pressing issue that I need input on. So if you have been for the COVID vaccine or you forgot like me to do it, will you go for it again? Should we be going for it again? Is there, I mean, luckily for me today, my guest today might be able to answer this question. And that's kind of how I'm segueing into this discussion today. Because in the end of the day, I'm not sure. Maybe she can't because she's at a baby clinic. But I was just wondering if we should be doing this and not. But today, specifically, we are talking about baby checkups, not necessarily adult checkups, even though those are also important. This is a baby show, this is a parenting show. And today, of course, we are talking about taking your baby for a checkup. So we've in the past, and if you've missed it, in the past, we have discussed the checkups with a pediatrician, going to your pediatrician, why you need to get checkups at the pediatrician. But then there's also these wellness checkups that we can go for, and of course vaccinations as well at baby clinics, which has a added function on the ped. I mean, sometimes I don't know about you. My personal experience was that with my pediatrician, he basically checked the most important, maybe not the most important, but he checked like the highlights or the most important things that was related to the health of my baby. And it was a very quick kind of check. I never felt that it was very long. And I had the absolute opposite experience with my clinic nurse. And that woman, I felt so bad for her. Donkey. Thank you for her. Because that was like, for me, the biggest thing was the fact that she would listen to everything. My complaints about my baby not sleeping, not eating, fevers, sickness, me feeling not nice, me being angry at my husband. I mean, that poor clinic sister. So thank you for her. I completely blanked out who my clinic sister was. It is 10 years ago, so it's allowed that I forgot. It's probably going to come to me during this show. But today I have the great privilege to be joined by Sister Adele de Beer. She's a clinic sister at Kloof Hospital here in Pretoria. But she's also been like a midwife for over 20 years. Another reason to maybe get her back on the show eventually to talk about that as well. And currently she's doing antenatal classes, breastfeeding support, and of course the Well Baby Clinic with immunizations. And as all my guests who come on the show, also the mother of 4. Hello, Adele.
Hi, Yolandi. How are you?
Fine, and you? Thank you so much for
Fine.
listening, first of all, to all my ramblings about my COVID.
No, it's fine. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, so thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're and ready for this discussion. It's been, like I said, for me, you guys are these clinic sisters are like a godsend, because you guys are like psychologists, clinic sisters, baby experts, sleep experts, feeding experts, psychologists. I don't know. You're like a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, we try to help, so.
And we really, really appreciate your help. And I can't wait to get into the discussion just now.
This is Bump and Beyond with Yolandi Becker, the show about pregnancy and babies. 101.9 megahertz of life.
If you've just joined me, you are on 101.9 Chai FM. This is Bump and Beyond, and I am your host, Yolandi Becker. I've just made the very public disclaimer that I had COVID. I'm not even sure. I remember back in the day, it was very frowned upon if you told people you had COVID. I did not have the same experience this time around, luckily. Didn't feel like I had to be, I mean, I did isolate, of course, but it was a very different kind of experience. But again, like I said, today we are specifically talking about checkups with our babies. and why it's important to go to checkups and vaccinations and those type of things. So joining me today is Sister Adele de Beer, and she is mother of 4. Adele, like I said, before we get into the wellness checkups, should I have gone for my COVID vaccine?
Yeah, I think you should have. You get, in the beginning we used to give 2 dosages and then there's a booster. Although I know they're busy working on a new strain, so maybe we'll get more information on that. But yeah, there is still available, so you can still get your COVID vaccine.
Yeah, see, I feel like the person at the Discount clinic, when I went for my flu vaccine, she could have said, "Hey, don't you want a COVID booster?" And she didn't. But I'm blaming her, and I should actually just blame myself.
Yeah, like you say.
Yeah, I am an adult, so I should have thought about it myself. But now I'm pretty immune after my week of illness. So I feel very confident at the moment. Great. Let's get into it. Adele, thank you again. Like I said, first of all, thank you to you and everyone in your profession. I really feel like you make parenting for us so much easier. And so first of all, thank you for that. But now I want to start off with, let's start with, why is it important that parents go for these checkups?
Okay, so I think, first of all, if we can just maybe discuss the different types of clinics that you do get.
Yes,
people just
that sounds like a good point.
Yeah, just that people know what's out there. So you get government clinics, and then you get private clinics that's got access to government stock and or government vaccines and so forth. And then you get also private clinics that's got access to none of those. So depending on which one you attend, that's what's going to determine which service you're going to get. But if you go, for instance, to a government clinic, all the staff that's working at these clinics are registered nurses, which qualify, which extra studied in community nursing. So, and primary health care. So if you, for instance, go to a private clinic, then the nurses there would do all the checkups, and they've also got the authority to, prescribe and check for tonsillitis and otitis media and all of that. And then they've got access to a limited of certain medicine that they can give you. And if they feel there is a need for a doctor appointment, then usually once a week there's a doctor that visits this government clinic. Then they would give you an appointment to actually see this doctor. So that's basically, and all of that is obviously for free. So it works on a first come, first served basis. They usually open from 8 to 4. And in most areas, there's government clinics. So you go and you sit in a row and you wait for your turn. Then if we talk about private clinics, most of your private clinics that's affiliated or stationed at a hospital, a private hospital, they usually have access to government vaccines. The reason being is, especially for your polio drops that they need to get at birth, the babies, and also the BCG for tuberculosis, which is also compulsory from the government side. So then you usually just pay your consultation and you see the sister at the private clinic, and the vaccines are for free. There is a schedule that needs to be followed. That's the EPI according to the government, and that's the basic schedule that we give everyone. So the vaccines are for free. In a private clinic, you're just going to pay the consultation fee. And then if you look at private vaccines, there is private options as well that we actually just slot in between these government appointments, if I can call it that, with government vaccines. And those are obviously optional. And then those you can claim back from your medical aid if you've got a savings account. Vaccines usually gets paid by a savings account on your medical aid. And then there's also private clinics that's usually not at a hospital, where the nurses has got access to everything, but everything is private. So then obviously the cost is much more, but it doesn't mean the stock is different or, better or anything like that.
Yeah.
So depending on which one you attend is the service that you're going to get.
Okay. And at your specific, because you now specifically are, at a hospital, what can
Yes.
a mom expect if she comes in for a visit? What can she expect when she comes for the first visit or for any visit?
Okay, all right. So basically, when the mom comes to the clinic, it's a very holistic approach. So we take the baby from head to toe to see, is everything okay, and weigh the baby and measure the head circumference, and just ask a lot of questions. Like you said, it's very holistic of how's the baby eating, how's the baby sleeping, all those things that we can help you with. So that's basically what they can expect, and then obviously also get their vaccinations that's due.
Yeah. How long does a visit normally take?
Depends on what we do, but usually it's half an hour. We usually book half an hour, and then if there's more advice needed, especially regarding breastfeeding, for instance, then we would book an hour just to have some extra time and just to, because it's no use you just give the vaccination and you can't actually discuss anything else. Because like you said, the mom actually wants a little bit more TLC, and she wants to ask questions that she not necessarily can ask the pediatrician, regarding more personal stuff, and also with the baby. And then we also check for the milestone development and the gross motor, and see how they are developing, and if we need to refer to a physio or an occupational therapist. So it's a very holistic approach.
Yeah. No, and like I said, for me, definitely this was one of my, I wouldn't say favorite things, because I also hated taking my child for a vaccination. And it's like, that's I guess the mom's duty in some ways, because I remember then asking my husband, it's like every single time I'm like, I think next time you should take the baby, because I really, I can't, it's too traumatic for me. I can't. And then when it came to the date, I could not let him do it, because I was like, I have to be there for my little one. I can't let him do it. I have to be there. So even though I didn't love that part of it, it's also just like 5 seconds and then it's over. So it also sounds worse than it is. But it was a great opportunity. And I remember I always came with a little list of all my questions and things that are happening to ask. So no, I really looked forward to those kind of visits, just to check up. And for me, it was also important to kind of, like I said, realize those development milestones that need to happen. But why is it important that we check up on babies? And let's start with that before I say the importance of vaccines.
Okay, so I think it is important to take your child, like I said, that we can just check everything. And also, I think if what I like to do is actually to see them 2 weeks after birth, because just to see that the weight is fine. Because remember, after birth, the baby loses 10%. It's normal for them to lose 10% of their birth weight, and they've got 2 weeks to pick it up again. So just to give the mom perspective, you know what, it's okay, the baby will pick it up, and they've got some extra stores, so don't stress about it. And just to give a peace of mind. And then in that first 2 weeks when you weigh the baby, just to see, are we close to it, or do we need to supplement? Do we need to adjust something? And just to go through all the questions, because things like hiccups, that's normal, and squinting, that's normal. It's things that parents don't know, and then you can literally go from head to toe and swaddle the baby and put the nappy on and tell them about everything that's actually normal. And also with the BCG, for instance, because the BCG that they give in hospital just before the discharge, it actually grows and it looks like a pimple, and then it bursts open and that yellow content actually drains, and then it makes a scab and it falls off and it makes a mark. So usually parents forget that the nurse actually gave them the information. And then they get to 8 or 10 weeks and they're like, oh my goodness, what is this? Is this a spider bite?
Oh, no.
And it's just a BCG, which is quite normal, So all of that to just to recap everything and to tell them, you know what? Okay, so please look at this. Make sure you feed regular. Everything that we see that's maybe out of the norm or that we can change a bit. That's what we actually discussed. And I think that's why it's important to, regular go, that we can just see all of that.
Yeah. So if you've just joined me, you are on 101.9 High FM. This is Bump and Beyond, and we're always talking parenting. And specifically today, we are talking checkups at the baby clinics and why it's important. And if you would like to join us in this conversation, like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of pressing questions I have today. So you need to start messaging me, telling me if it's okay to watch the Barbie movie. Have you been sick or had COVID lately? And if you have questions about taking your baby for a checkup, of course, I have Sister Adele the Beer here today, talking specifically about baby wellness checkups and why it's important and what happens during these checkups. So if you have pressing questions for her, please send it to us. You can send it on Telegram on 061 895 1019. You can, of course, also phone us on 010 140 3020 or SMS us at 34519. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Adele, you were now mentioning specifically also there was two questions that I wanted to ask now. The first one was like you mentioned babies lose weight after birth and it's important to weigh them. And that's something I also remember with these checkups that we regularly, obviously with every checkup, the clinic sister weighed my baby. Later on, then with my daughter, I remember someone actually gave me a scale, one of their old scales, as a gift. So my question is, why are we needing to regularly weigh our children or our babies? And should we also be doing it at home, or is the checkup sufficient?
Okay, so again, like I said, if you can get to your clinic sister within the first 10 to 14 days after birth, and we can get a baseline of what the baby weighs and see how close are they to their birth weight. Then if she's fine with it, then I wouldn't stress about weighing the baby regularly at home. I always say enjoy your baby and don't get analysis paralysis. We don't need spreadsheets of everything and we don't need to plot everything. In the end, what your baby needs, your breast will make. And I always say God never makes a mistake. So you make what the baby needs, and as long as the baby sleeps well and picks up enough weight, then you don't need to know, for instance, how much milk your breast is actually making. So if you just feed 3 hourly, it will be fine normally. Okay, so except if the clinic sister weighed the baby and she thinks there's maybe a problem, she would tell you, okay, Mama, please come back in a week's time. Let's just see what happened in the next week. Especially maybe if you struggled with the breastfeeding or she adjusted a little bit or ask you to give a top up. So just that we see it's fine. So usually what I say, especially for the parents that's living really far, like Alice Rast of Tabazimbi of Zanine, or on a farm that don't actually have access to clinics, for instance, is I usually guide them telephonically. And I always tell them, okay, so try and get me a scale and tell me how much your baby weighs so that I know what I'm working with. So I always say the bare minimum that they need to pick up in a week is 150 grams a week. Ideally would be 180 to 250 grams a week. So that's the best. So I've even had parents that went to the butcher and asked, can I please weigh my baby on the scale? This is now really on your the boerder that's living quite far, or to the veterinarian to ask, what, can I just come and please weigh my baby? Yeah. But most of the farmers have got scales because they measure a lot of stuff. So if you can just give me something to work with. So for those that really want to weigh their baby, that is what you can do. This is what you can do. But honestly, if you've went for your first visit and the nurse was happy, then I can't see why you really have to stress about it constantly.
No, I remember now talking about the weighing. I remember that because also there's so many of clinics these days where there's a scale available, like a Discim, for instance, where you can just go in and weigh your baby on the scale. The nurse is not even going to charge you or anything if you do that more often than not. I remember at my Discim clinic by us here in Olympus, they actually allowed me. They had the scale standing outside the clinic, and you could just put your baby there and go away. And the only reason why I did it quite regularly at one point is because my baby had such severe reflux. And the only thing I always read was that if your baby is gaining weight, you've got nothing to worry about. And so I was kind of fixated on the weighing and making sure he was gaining weight because he was projectile vomiting. But in the end, he was always gaining weight. But again, reflux is also a great another topic. Maybe if we have time just now, we could go into that. But anyway, what I want to know is how often do parents, because now we talked about that initial checkup, but how often do babies have to come for these checkups?
Okay, so with the EPI schedule, if you look at the basic schedule, it's the first one is obviously in hospital, they get vaccinated, and then it's 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and then 4-week intervals. So it's 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, and then there's a little bit of gap. So 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 18 months. That's the EPI schedule, the government schedule.
Yes.
And then we only start putting private vaccines. We added maybe at 9 months. And then we might see your baby more frequently. But the first 3 months, or from 6 weeks, it's 6, 10, and 14 weeks. So then we see them actually monthly, which is a good thing because then again, you know, we can pick up a lot of potential problems, and also with the weighing. So that's a good because after the 2 weeks, then we see you again at 6 weeks.
No, I mean, for me also personally, again, it was such a great time. Also, you know, it's like when you're pregnant as well. You know, I know like certain European countries, for instance, they don't so regularly do the checkups as what we do when we are pregnant. But for myself, I really enjoyed it just to, you know, kind of make sure that everything is okay. And for me, that's why these checkups on a monthly basis at the clinic was also really great, because it was just also to, you know, I guess also for someone, because no one tells you you're doing a good job or anything when you're a mom. So it was really also just to say you are doing okay and keep going. It was also nice.
No, yeah, definitely.
But we are again, like slowly but surely, running out of time today again. But I can't wait. There's a whole bunch of questions that I still want to get to before you go, Adele. But we'll get to those just after the ad break.
This is Bump and Beyond with Yolandi Becker, the show about pregnancy and babies. 101.9 megahertz of life.
Yes, if you've just joined me, you are on 101.9 High FM with me, Yolandi Becker, on Bump and Beyond. And today specifically, we are talking baby wellness checkups at your wellness clinics. Specifically with Sister Adele de Beer, and it's been such a nice conversation. In the past, I've also had a discussion with a pediatrician about the checkups that you go for. And if you've missed that, please go look at our podcast. And of course, all of my other podcasts, if you've missed them. So I feel like we're creating a nice library of parenting at these podcasts, and you can find these on highfm.com. Before we went to the break, Adele was mentioning, you know, why it's important and also how regularly you have to go. And it is helpful. Like I mentioned, for me, it was really helpful to go once a month because it just kind of made me feel reassured as a mom, that everything was okay, and you know, baby was feeding the way that they're supposed to, and baby is growing, and everything was great. But Adele, I mean, I also mentioned earlier that, you know, you guys, I think my clinic sister got a nice earful sometimes of the different issues, and it was definitely not just baby related. It was also or maybe not just vaccine related or development related. There was also some psychological things that definitely she had to listen to and prep me up and help me. But what are some of the most common kind of questions you have encountered with moms? Also, don't feel shy to share some interesting, funny ones.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, so the biggest question I think is, which some of the moms ask is, do I have enough milk? Am I producing enough milk? And I think I've touched on that.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, as long as the baby's picking up enough weight and you feed regularly and the baby sleeps well, then obviously you do have enough milk. I don't think you have to, measure or know exactly. And this is now specifically due to breastfeeding. But if your baby is a bottle-fed baby, then we actually work it out according to a formula, because we take the baby's weight. So if you look at the formula terms, they actually give a guideline, but it's way too much than what the baby actually needs. And there's actually a study done that showed that they've taken, I don't know how many thousand children in the UK, where they actually followed them from birth until 1 year of age, just giving bottle feed. And whether it was express breast milk in the bottle or formula, it didn't matter. By a year, they were all obese. And that's to do with, that's just to do with the fact that you actually, a breastfed baby has got a skill to stop when they've had enough. Where a bottle-fed baby, we tend to overfeed them, and the sensation that they associate that they are full is actually overfeeding. You know that Sunday lunch when you're so full that you actually can't sleep, when your mom made you a lekker roast and all of that. Exactly. So we overfeed them. So that's where the concept paced bottle feeding comes from. It's where you actually pace the feed with the bottle when you give it to the baby, that if they shut their lips and they really don't want, where they open their mouth, then you don't give that extra 20 or 30 ml. You leave it. And then, like I say, we actually work out according to a formula how much milk the baby needs to consume per bottle and in a 24-hour period. So that's just something interesting that you can think of. So if you don't know this, and if you actually have a bottle-fed baby and you look on the formula guideline, please don't stress if your baby don't consume that amount, because it's actually too much. The other question that I usually get is, when do we start with solids? So definitely there's two schools. It's the PEDS that say, and also new guideline and studies that show we start at 4.5 months, so just not before 17 weeks of age. And then we also start with vegetables, for instance, like pumpkin. We don't start with pap, for instance, cereals. And then also what we can do is we can see, okay, what's the cues of the baby for solids if they're ready to start having solids. So the cues that we look out for is they need to be able to sit, even if it's with support. They need to have a good head and neck control. Everything needs to go to their mouth, hands, everything. And they usually go through this oral phase where they drool a lot. You have to use a lot of bibs. And then the last thing is, I always say, you feel guilty to eat in front of them because they look the food out of your mouth. You actually want to go and stand around the corner and eat. So then you know, okay, my baby is ready. So that's usually between 4.5 and 5 months of age that you can actually start with the solids. And then a big question I think that you guys really help a lot with is, how can I get my baby to sleep better or sleep through? Or I think that's the biggest thing as well. So then we obviously refer to you guys to Good Night just to assist with that. Because, I mean, there's a lot of factors that is involved in sleep. So you need to look at routine and at habits and, how old's the child and what's their comfort. There's so many factors that's contributing to a good sleep environment and a sleep habit. So then we like to refer for that, because that's a total speciality on its own.
Yeah,
because I think that's basically what I've got. That I actually see the biggest concerns at the moment.
Oh, no, I mean, and it's nice and it also gives us some nice other topics to talk about in the future as well. So we can talk specifically. I mean, it might have been appropriate to talk a little bit more about breastfeeding today, considering it is breastfeeding week this week.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is also, I mean, just the fact that you were talking about that formula. I breastfed both my kids for a very long time. And I remember with Oscar specifically, when he was much older, I started giving formula, also only to top up. And I can very specifically remember looking at the container, and I was like, "He's gonna drink this much formula? I do not think so." And
Exactly.
I was surprised at how much they wanted me to give him, and that was not the correct amount at all. He drank a lot less. But yes, then for me also interesting. I mean, you know, mentioning also sleep, and also, to be honest, as good nights, we definitely love getting referrals from clinic sisters, because we of course also follow a holistic approach, and for us it helps a lot because we know certain things have been ticked. This baby is growing, all is well with this baby, so we know that those basic things, which is also important and can affect sleep, can also have an impact. So yes, thank you for the referrals, but we also love to get those referrals and do it vice versa in the end of the day. What are some of the things though that might be kind of red flags? I think maybe what you mentioned is specifically the weight gain, but what is, you know, something where you specifically would notice, oh, this is not normal and I have to refer out? Like most common red flags, obviously there must be a lot of those type of things, but what is the most common kind of red flags that you look out for?
Because I think the biggest thing is actually the milestone development. So, for instance, especially growth motor. So, for instance, they need to be able to roll at 5 months and sit at 6 months. And at 9 months, they start crawling, and at 12 months, they start walking. But they've got from 6 to 9 months to sit, and from 9 to 12 months to crawl, and from 12 months to 18 months to actually walk. So if it's out of that range, then we say, okay, no, there is definitely, we need to refer so that we can just help them to actually reach those milestones. And then also your language and your speech milestones, where they need to start talking and making sounds. And also, can they hear? Can they see? I've got 2 babies that is actually deaf, and I've got one that is blind. Yeah. So in the end, it's like the moms that actually realize, listen here, but this child doesn't turn the head when I'm talking, or this baby doesn't follow me at all. So, you know, then it's like, okay, so maybe we see them before the peer even saw them, because it's, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And then we say, okay, no, please, let's just refer and send to your pediatrician, and let them just send to the right people to sort it out, or specialists to sort it out. So I think,
we're very running. Craig is giving me the stink eye. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to ad break and then we'll finish up. But I'm learning again so much. It's been such a great talk already.
This is Bump and Beyond with Yolandi Becker, the show about pregnancy and babies. 101.9 megahertz of life.
If you've just joined me, you've missed it. We've basically run out of time, but don't worry, just like every week, this will be available as a podcast on chaifm.com. And today specifically, we spoke to Sister Adele de Beer about those wellness checkups, those red flags you need to look out, how to prepare for these things, and. But on that note, that is the specific question. My very last quick question, Adele, before you go, is what can moms do to prepare for these checkups? What do we need to do?
Okay, so I always say don't expect the worst, and it's not as bad as Facebook says it is. So just have a comfort ready for after the vaccination, meaning a dummy or a breast or a bottle, just to comfort them and soothe them. And then I think the biggest thing for me is not to give Panado before the time. We only give Panado if the temperature goes above 38 degrees. There's actually a study that shows that Panado has got effect on the seroconversion, in other words, the build of antibodies from the vaccine. So especially with your HIP, your Haemophilus influenza B. So you don't want to unnecessarily give Panado. Of course, the reason why we vaccinate is so that the children can have immunity and build antibodies.
Yeah.
So a normal temperature is always 37.6. So anything above that, a 37.78 or 9 is a low-grade fever. That's okay. They need to fight and they need to build some antibodies. But from 38 degrees, we can actually give Panado if there's a temperature. And then there is some natural stuff that you can use, Vibercol. It's a natural homeopathic suppository that I like to use. It's got like chamomile in it. So that's quite safe, and it's got no effect on the efficacy of the vaccines. But also not to, rub anything on the legs, because again, there isn't studies that shown that it's got no effect on the efficacy of the vaccine. The only thing that actually has got a study is Traumeel gel. So if we use anything, that's the only thing that I actually use because of that reason. It's just evidence-based. So if you work evidence-based, then obviously there's no space for any problems regarding negative, side effects and so forth. So I think that's the biggest, that's what they actually can expect from the visit, or what they can do to prepare. It's just and then, it's a long visit, so they can feed and they can relax. They don't have to think it's going to be the end of the world at all.
Yeah. Adele, this has been so insightful. To be honest, I'm disappointed I don't have a baby to bring to you because it is, just the way you talk, you know what you're talking about. You have a soothing kind of manner to you, which I think lots of sisters do have, because this is a passion. I always say your job is a passion for sure. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise today. It was much appreciated.
Thank you, Landy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Not a problem. So just like that, again, the show has come to an end. Again, you can listen to this on our podcast on highfm.com. We've talked very specifically about also the checkups and development, and why it's important to go check up. And even Adele was mentioning that sleep is one of the most common things that parents also ask about when going for these checkups. The reality is that development is change within your baby. So technically your baby is changing all the time. And the biggest reason for a sleep regression, for instance, or the only reason for a sleep regression, is changes. And that developmental change can have an impact on your baby's sleep. Unfortunately, more often than not, no, it is only a phase that your baby is going through. So when you go through these leaps or development phases, don't be surprised if your baby's sleep is affected by it. Please, of course, have a look at our website, goodnightbaby.co.za, if you want to have more information on these sleep regressions. But that is it for me for today. It was, as always, wonderful to join you on the show today. If you have any questions or topics that we can discuss in the future, please don't hesitate to send us an email at bumpitbeyond@highfm.com. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. Let's lead by example for our children. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, enjoy your day.